Welcome back to Montana this morning on this Friday morning. Time now is 6:43, 61 degrees to get our day started. And it looks like we'll also have some smoke to get the day started too, just like yesterday. But what's up next for that sky? Ed has the details in his forecast just a few minutes from now. Let's go ahead and get to news. Our top story this morning, Joe Biden accepted the Democratic Party's nomination for president, pitting him against President Trump with the November election less than 75 days away. Biden's speech from Wilmington, Delaware, wrapped up the four-day virtual convention. Biden addressed the coronavirus pandemic, America's battered economy, and uniting a divided nation. Next week, the Republican National Convention kicks off. South Carolina Senator Tim Scott is among Monday night's scheduled speakers. President Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, was arrested in connection with an alleged fundraising scheme for a border wall. According to the indictment, Bannon and three others orchestrated the scheme in 2018 to defraud hundreds of thousands of donors in connection with an online crowdfunding campaign called We Build the Wall. After pleading not guilty in a Manhattan federal court, Bannon was released from jail on $5 million bond. U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy will testify before a Republican-led Senate committee today. As CNN's John Lawrence reports, this will be DeJoy's first chance to publicly address accusations that changes he's implemented will hamper mail-in voting.
The man responsible for U.S. mail delivery thrust into the spotlight. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy is drawing bipartisan concern over changes put into place since his tenure began in June. He's since promised to pause changes until after the election.
The point about the machinery being out exposed to the elements is how difficult it will be to reverse what he's done. Even if there is some commitment confirmed in writing.
DeJoy's administration has removed letter sorters, ended overtime pay, and reduced postal operating hours in numerous states. An internal email obtained by CNN instructs workers not to reconnect any machines taken offline without approval.
Some of the damage has already been done and, caused some distrust in the American people to use the mail system.
Critics of DeJoy, an ally and supporter of President Trump, say his changes could hamper mail-in voting in November during a pandemic. The president has repeatedly made unfounded fraud claims about voting by mail, saying it's a Democratic attempt to prevent a second Trump term.
This is just a way they're trying to steal the election, and everybody knows that, because the only way they're going to win is by a rigged election.
Republican leaders say the post office remains vital.
We're not going to let it go under, and certainly we're not going to have anything that affects the fall election.
I'm John Lawrence reporting.
And DeJoy is scheduled to appear before a Democratic-led House committee on Monday. Now closer to home, Yellowstone County added 2 COVID-related deaths, and Bighorn County is now up to 15 in the latest report from Montana health officials. A man and a woman in their 60s brought the death toll to 34 in Yellowstone County. Overall, the state added 117 new cases on Thursday. More than 6,000 people currently have the virus in Montana. On the campaign trail, Montana's general election ballots have been certified without them, but the legal battle to get the Green Party back by November is alive. Montana Secretary of State Corey Stapleton is now asking the United States Supreme Court to rule on whether or not the party is eligible. This after Montana Supreme Court ruled the Green Party couldn't be on the ballot. If the U.S. Supreme Court was to take up the case, it's not clear what a ruling would mean for the already certified ballots. Republican candidate for governor Greg Gianforte is throwing another $1 million of his own money into his campaign. Gianforte has spent more than $2.5 million of personal wealth on his bid to take the seat. That's about equal to what he has received from donors. His opponent, Democrat Mike Cooney, reported raising $725,000 over the last 2 months. Gianforte took in $580,000 over that same period. In education news, Laurel public schools are up and running. On Thursday, students returned to the classroom for the first time since March. About 15% of the district's students opted for online learning. That's about 330 kids. The superintendent said she was surprised by that number and thought more would stay home. School officials are taking all the necessary COVID precautions. They set up barriers to separate students and wipe them down between every period. No matter how different it looks, school officials say it's good to be back.
Education is a social endeavor, and we all want the kids, and that's why we do what we do for the kids. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to have the kids back.
The district split the student body in half yesterday and today to help them get oriented with the new protocols. Starting on Monday, all in-person learners will be in the building at the same time. Now we go to Lockwood for a celebration 66 years in the making. This is how the new Lockwood High School was introduced to the community on Thursday. The idea for the new school was first proposed back in 1954, but didn't start becoming a reality until 2013. The celebration started at the newly built Lions home field and finished with a ribbon cutting in front of the high school.
It's honestly amazing. I honestly don't know if it's all settled in quite yet. You know, I think one of these days this winter I'm going to take a big breath and go, holy cow, look what we accomplished. The support we've had from our community out here has been amazing.
This is about government saying yes to local communities to be able to build something that they firmly in their heart believe.
Lockwood High School will have freshmen and sophomores this year, and classes begin on August 26th. In Missoula, Mount Sentinel, home to the famous M, caught fire last night. The flames are now contained. Firefighters shut down the popular M Trail while they worked to put out the flames. Helicopters made bucket drops from the air in an effort to protect the famous landmark. The fire burned mostly grass on the south side of the mountain. In crime news, a University of Montana basketball player will be in court today charged with felony strangulation and assault. 20-year-old Nassim Gaskin was arrested earlier this week after police responded to a call from a woman saying Gaskin assaulted her. He's currently in a Missoula jail for the crimes. UM released a statement. Gaskin was immediately suspended from all athletic-related activities. And we're learning more this morning about how investigators finally nabbed a suspect in a 2011 murder near Helena. MTN's Jonathan Ambarian has those details.
Leon Michael Ford made his first court appearance in Washington State Thursday afternoon on charges of deliberate homicide and tampering with evidence in the long unsolved death of John Mike Kreitz. Ford was arraigned Thursday in Island County Superior Court after being arrested Wednesday. Court documents filed in Lewis and Clark County describe the investigation that led to the arrest. Kreitz went missing in June 2011. His dismembered remains were discovered in plastic bags near McDonald Pass in October 2011, and his skull was found several miles away in September 2012. An autopsy showed he died from gunshot wounds to the head. Kreitz lived on a property along Turk Road in a rural area outside Birdseye, northwest of Helena. Ford owned a nearby property further up the road. Court documents say there had been years of disputes between the two men over land access. Kreitz had put up a gate across a road leading to Ford's property, arguing there wasn't a legal easement for him to use it. Authorities said Ford had complained about the gate and sought legal orders allowing him access. Documents say in June 2011, Ford traveled to Montana from his home in Washington. They say Kreitz told another neighbor he and Ford had a confrontation over the gate, and told a friend he was worried issues with his neighbors would end in violence. Investigators said a neighbor's game camera showed Ford's vehicle traveling towards Kreitz's property around the time of his last phone call. The neighbor later found Kreitz was missing and the gate had been cut down. Investigators said the camera footage contradicted Ford's statements that he had been spraying weeds along the road in the days after Kreitz disappeared. According to court documents, investigators found cable ties along with Kreitz's remains. They say the ties were identified as an unusual type that had to be special ordered. Documents say Ford had had some of those ties from the military base where he worked in Washington. Lewis and Clark County Sheriff Leo Dutton says his office will now begin the process of bringing Ford back to Montana to face charges. In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. Montanans on unemployment due to the COVID-19 pandemic will start to see additional funds after the initial $600 a week ran out. The Montana Department of Labor, along with FEMA, approved an extra $400 per week to those receiving unemployment benefits. Montana is the 8th state to receive the FEMA grant. Those enrolled will receive backdated payments from August 1st. There is no set date for when the grant will run out, but it cannot go past December 27th. Also, making headlines this morning, the Boston bombers once again being considered for the death penalty. The Justice Department says it will look to reinstate it after the punishment was thrown out last month. 3 people died and more than 260 were wounded during the 2013 Boston Marathon bombing. Attorney General William Barr says the department will take the case to the Supreme Court for the appeal. Last month's ruling said the bomber would get a trial to determine if the death penalty should be used. And Dr. Anthony Fauci has been the go-to for information on the coronavirus pandemic, but the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases will need to rest his voice after a procedure yesterday. Fauci confirms he had surgery to remove a polyp on his vocal cord. However, that didn't stop him from taking part in numerous interviews this week up until Wednesday. Fauci says he will be back at work on Monday. And that wraps up our news for this Friday. Ed, things are looking a little red behind you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we've got a lot of the smoke still in the sky, and it makes for a great picture, but it does also impact temperatures a little bit. The good news is not a lot of the smoke is mixed down to the surface in terms of air quality at this point, and we may actually even get a little break from it. 61 right now in the airport with a southwest breeze at 6 miles per hour. Our weather system from yesterday moving off into the Dakotas, leaving a clearer sky. Temperatures range from the 40s and around Butte and over towards Kalispell to the mid 60s around Glendive this morning. 64 in Williston, 57 in Sheridan, 56 in Cody, 54 this morning for you in Livingston. I mentioned the 61 in Billings. So as we start getting into the afternoon today, we got a little cooler air starting to shift into the region. As that cold front moved through yesterday, it did produce stronger wind gusts. Jordan 67 miles an hour, over 50 miles an hour in Wolf Point, Sydney, Miles City. You saw some stronger gusts. Billings, strongest wind reported was at 38 miles per hour. And we did get some hail reports from thunderstorms moving up around the Great Falls area, up to about an inch in size around Geyser. So here's the front passing by. That allows the cooler air at least a little downshift. Here's all that smoke. It's all coming from wildfires in California, or at least a good measure of it is. And that's continuing to affect areas of southern Montana and northern Wyoming. But as we take it through time, here's the forecast analysis for smoke. The red shaded areas show we get a little break during the day. It doesn't totally go away, but we could get a little break before another round of smoke likely will push into the region as we get into late tomorrow. That could affect temperatures by a few degrees today. Sunshine otherwise, and temperatures mainly into the mid 80s to mid 90s this afternoon. Dry conditions, but a little breezy across the eastern plains. Take it into tomorrow. This next cold front approaches, and that'll boost the temperatures up before it pushes through. So we're looking at around 100 degrees in Billings. Certainly the triple digits possible into the eastern plains, and will threaten a few record high temperatures. We do have some fire weather concerns in north central and southwest Montana. Temperatures back off a little bit on Sunday. It'll be a lot like today, mid 80s to mid 90s, but another day of heat comes in on Monday, and again, we could at least be in the neighborhood of some record high readings. Today, mid 80s to mid 90s, generally with sunshine, light winds for the most part, and not much threat of showers or thunderstorms during the day. Some wind, maybe 10 to 20 miles an hour in southeastern Montana. The last of that weather system starting to move out. So warm temperatures for this time of the year. Typically, Billings would be in the mid 80s this time of the year, and then 50s and 60s, pretty close to where we have been for the morning hours. Tomorrow, looking for daytime highs into the mid 90s to maybe around 105 into some areas of the eastern plains. Billings could be close to a record high temperature, along with Miles City and Glendive tomorrow. In fact, here is a look at where those records end up. Billings forecast at 99, but 100 ties the record. Miles City, Sheridan also in the neighborhood, and we're not going to rule it out for you around Livingston either. A little bump in those temperatures, and you're pushing a record high temperature. Readings near 100 Saturday and Monday for record high readings or close to it, and then we'll see a cool down. Let's see what's on CBS This Morning.
Coming up, now that Joe Biden's his party's nominee for president, we'll talk to Vice President Mike Pence about next week's Republican convention. Plus, 100 years ago, American women got the right to vote. A look at the future of women's rights. Coming up on CBS This Morning.
So we're celebrating National Aviation Week, and we tried to find something as close as we could to a cat flying. And this is the video that we were able to come with. I don't know if you remember this viral one. A cat on the wing of a plane. They didn't notice it before they took off, but he hung on for dear life, and they had a good flight. Have a good weekend, a better one than that cat, and we will see you back here on Monday.